All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are taking a deep dive into the world of negotiation.
Ooh, exciting.
And to guide us on this journey, we're using the book Getting to Yes. I know a lot of you have probably heard of this book.
A classic.
Yeah, total classic. But even if you're familiar with it, and I know you are, because you're all super smart,
The best listeners out there.
the best, right? This book, this deep dive, is going to reveal some seriously insightful stuff.
I think you'll be surprised.
I think so too. We're going to look at how to approach any negotiation, whether you're in the boardroom or,
We're trying to get your kids to eat their vegetables.
oh, that's a tough one.
Mm.
You know, getting to yes, it kind of flips the script on how we usually think about negotiating, right?
Hmm.
It's not about this whole like win or lose thing.
It's not a battle.
No, it's not about that. It's about reaching what they call a wise agreement.
One that actually benefits everyone involved.
Exactly. And that starts with understanding one of the biggest pitfalls,
What's that?
getting stuck in those positions.
Oh, I see those rigid stances.
Yes. Like those my way or the highway kind of declarations. We've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, getting to, yes, it argues that fixating on positions is like a recipe for disaster.
Disaster. Really.
Yeah. Deadlock, bad deals, all that.
I can see how that could happen.
They give this great example in the book about, remember those two guys arguing over a window in a library?
One wants it open, the other wants it closed.
Yeah, classic standoff,
Yeah.
right? Total gridlock. And then the librarian swoops in, asks that magic question.
Why?
Yes, why? Turns out one guy wants fresh air, the other one hates drafts.
Simple solution.
Right. Open a window in another room.
There you go. Problem solved.
Needs addressed, not just the stubborn positions.
I love that.
It's brilliant. This book, it makes you ask why, not just of the other person.
But of yourself, too.
Yes, exactly. It's about digging deeper, uncovering those needs.
Desires, fears, those unspoken anxieties.
All the things driving those positions. It's like an iceberg.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Decisions are just what you see on the surface.
Right. But the real action, the driving force,
It's all hidden underwater.
those are the interests.
The interest.
Right.
And understanding those, yours and theirs, is the key.
The key to unlocking those creative solutions.
Makes you think of those nuclear testing ban negotiations. Remember, U.S. and the Soviet Union.
Oh, yeah. High stakes.
Super high stakes.
Yeah.
They were completely hung up on the number of on-site inspections.
You can have 5, no 10.
Exactly. A total stalemate.
It's funny when you think about it, they never actually defined what an inspection meant.
Oh, interesting point.
Like, what were they really trying to achieve?
The U.S. wanted verification, for sure, but
But both sides wanted to minimize that whole intrusion thing.
right, maybe if they focused on those deeper interests, the underlying needs,
They could have come up with a system, something less intrusive.
more transparent, maybe even more effective in the end.
Who knows?
So it's not about, like, defending your territory.
It's more like exploring a map together.
Finding that path that works for both sides. It's like a shared problem to solve, not a battle.
I love that.
And getting to yes gives you some really cool tools for uncovering those hidden interests.
Like what?
Well, the simplest, just asking why.
Good old why.
Yeah, it's like that skeleton key.
Opens doors you didn't even know existed.
Exactly. And it's not just about asking the other person why.
You gotta ask yourself why, too.
Yes, why do I want this? What am I really hoping to achieve?
It's so easy to just go with your gut reaction.
Totally. Another great technique is thinking about the other person's choices. Like, put yourself in their shoes.
See the world through their lens.
Yeah, ask yourself, why not? What's stopping them from saying yes?
What are their fears, their concerns?
The book uses that Iranian hostage crisis as an example.
Oh, yeah, that was a tough one.
For those students, releasing the hostages, it wasn't just about letting some Americans go free.
There was a lot more to it.
So much more. It was about saving face, about not betraying their revolution.
Right, not giving in to the U.S. without something in return.
Suddenly, their reluctance, it kind of makes sense.
You can see how their interests are shaping their choices.
And that opens up possibilities, right?
Absolutely. New ways to find that common ground.
Another tool they talk about is the balance sheet approach. Instead of just assuming you know what the other side wants, try visualizing the pros and cons as they see them.
Like stepping into their mind.
Yeah. Creating this mental spreadsheet, weighing their potential gains and losses.
Interesting. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine you're a landlord. trying to renew a lease with a long-term tenant.
Okay, I'm following.
You might want to raise the rent, obviously, but then there's the cost of finding a new tenant.
Right. The hassle, the risk of vacancies.
And the value of having a good, reliable renter. Suddenly, it's not so simple.
Definitely more nuanced.
And by understanding their potential gains and losses,
You might find creative solutions beyond just a rent increase.
maybe a longer lease term, shared responsibility for building maintenance,
Yeah.
who knows?
That's amazing. Understanding those interests really unlocks those creative possibilities.
It does. And speaking of creative possibilities,
Yeah.
this leads us to one of the most exciting concepts in Getting Today. Yes,
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me.
moving beyond positions to invent options. It's about shifting that mindset.
From competition to collaboration.
You got it. Instead of trying to carve up a fixed pie,
We're baking a bigger pie.
yes, a bigger, tastier pie that everyone can enjoy. And that starts with
Brainstorming.
brainstorming, not just solo, but with the other side.
Wait, so you're saying we should put all our cards on the table?
It might seem counterintuitive,
Be risky.
but the potential rewards could be huge. Think about that example with the coal mine and the union leaders.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
They sat down together, trying to figure out how to reduce those wildcat strikes.
Instead of arguing over blame, they brainstormed solutions.
And they came up with some pretty innovative stuff, right? On-the-spot grievance resolution, joint training programs.
Even social events.
They tapped into this collective well of creativity.
That wouldn't have been possible without that collaborative environment.
Exactly. Sometimes the best solutions come when we put our heads together.
Not our fists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Getting to Yes offers this really cool technique for brainstorming called the circle chart.
Okay, tell me more.
Imagine a circle divided into 4 quadrants.
Got it.
You start with a specific problem.
Then you move to the next quadrant, asking, what's the root cause of this problem?
Exactly. From there, you brainstorm theoretical solutions, and finally,
You translate those into concrete actions.
perfect. The book uses that conflict in Northern Ireland as an example.
Remind me.
One idea was to have Catholic and Protestant teachers collaborate on a history workbook.
Showing multiple perspectives. That's cool.
Right. From that specific action, they explored this broader principle of promoting understanding through shared education.
Leading to teacher exchanges, joint film projects. Wow.
You go from concrete to abstract and back again.
Generating this chain reaction of possibilities.
Yeah. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what about the risks? What if they use my ideas against me?
That's a valid concern.
Getting to Yes addresses those concerns. It's about setting clear ground rules, maybe throwing out some dummy options.
Creating a safe space for exploration.
Exactly. Remember, brainstorming is about expanding the pie, not dividing it.
It's about options, not concessions.
Even in the most complex negotiation, there's often more that unites us than divides us.
That's a really nice thought.
And sometimes the best way to bridge that divide is by building something together.
I like that. So we've brainstormed all these amazing options.
Right. But how do we actually make a decision?
How do we pick a solution that works for everyone, not just the loudest person in the room?
Because brainstorming is just the first step.
Then comes the hard part, right? Hammering out an agreement.
One that's fair, sustainable, beneficial for everyone.
And getting to yes challenges this idea that negotiation is about willpower.
Oh, I see. Not about who can push harder, concede less.
Right. It's not about wearing the other side down.
That whole winner-takes-all mentality.
Which is not only kind of ethically questionable,
But also really ineffective.
leads to impasse, resentment, agreements that fall apart.
And it's just so inefficient. Imagine a negotiation where everyone's playing hardball.
It's like a game of chicken where everyone loses in the end.
So what's the alternative?
Well, getting to yes proposes a radically different approach,
Which is,
shifting the focus from subjective will to objective criteria.
so instead of my price is final,
It's more like market value for similar items is around this range. Does that seem fair?
grounding the negotiation in something external, something verifiable.
Something both sides can agree on.
And it really resonates with that core message of separating the people from the problem.
Right. It's not you versus me,
It's about finding a solution that's objectively fair,
based on those agreed upon principles.
like using a shared compass to navigate a complex landscape.
You might disagree on the route.
But at least you agree on which way is north.
I like that.
They give a great example in the book from the Law of the Sea negotiations.
Oh, yeah. Those were intense.
They were totally stuck on how to allocate those deep-sea mining sites.
Developing nations were worried about being exploited.
But then someone discovered this MIT model.
A model that could objectively evaluate the economic impact of different proposals.
Total game changer.
It shifted the focus from political posturing to data-driven discussion.
Leading to a fairer, more efficient agreement.
That's amazing.
Getting to yes provides lots of examples of these objective criteria.
Like what?
Market value, expert opinions, precedent, scientific data, legal principles.
Even moral standards.
And they offer this simple test. If someone proposes a standard,
You ask yourself, would they accept that same standard if the situation were reversed?
it's a check for fairness and reciprocity.
Brilliant.
Even the choice of which standard to use should be based on objective criteria.
Not just who can shout the loudest.
Speaking of shouting, remember that story about Tom negotiating with the insurance adjuster after his car got totaled?
Oh, yeah, Tom.
He was a master at using objective criteria.
He really was.
The adjuster kept lowballing him, citing company policy.
But Tom wouldn't budge.
He kept asking, how did you arrive at that figure? What standard are you using?
And then he found that newspaper listing a comparable car.
Boom. Market data to negotiate a fair settlement.
Persistence and principled argumentation paying off.
It shows you got to know your rights and not get bullied by arbitrary rules.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another challenge that Getting to Yes tackles head-on,
That is.
dealing with those negotiators who, well, let's just say, don't always play by the rules.
Oh, we all know those types.
Tricky tactics, emotional manipulation, maybe even some good old-fashioned deception.
In a perfect world, everyone would follow the principles of getting to yes.
But we don't live in a perfect world, unfortunately.
So what do we do when we're across the table from someone who's playing dirty?
That's where Getting to Yes introduces this really empowering concept.
Okay, I'm listening.
They call it negotiation jujitsu,
Negotiation jujitsu.
like the martial art,
Oh, I see.
using the other side's force against them.
Not by fighting back
But
directly.
by deflecting those attacks.
Channeling that energy in a more constructive direction. I love that. But how does it actually work?
Well, the core principle is simple. Don't react, deflect.
Don't react, deflect. Got it.
Stay calm, cool, and collected.
Don't let them get to you.
Exactly. The more reactive you are, the more control they have.
So what are some specific deflection techniques?
One of the simplest is just naming the tactic. Calling it out can disarm it,
Shining that spotlight on their bad behavior.
making it harder for them to continue.
So if they make a ridiculously low offer, I might say something like, that seems like a pretty extreme opening gambit.
Right. What's the strategy behind that number?
You're not accusing them, just observing their tactic.
Inviting them to explain their reasoning
It forces them to either back down or justify their position.
in a more legitimate way.
It's like saying, I see what you're doing and I'm not playing that game.
Precisely. The book gives this great example of the good guy, bad guy routine.
Oh, the classic.
One comes in tough and demanding, then the other swoops in, all reasonable, offering a compromise.
That's still tilted in their favor.
It's like a bad cop movie, but the stakes are your business deal, your sanity.
So what do we do?
Don't fall for the good guy trap. Treat them the same way you treated the bad guy.
Ask for their reasoning, their objective justification.
Exactly. If they say, look, I'm trying to be reasonable here, how about we split the difference?
You say, I appreciate that, but I'm still not clear why that's the fairest solution. Can you help me understand?
Yes. Hold them accountable to those same standards of fairness and objectivity.
Don't let them off the hook just because they've switched tactics.
Stay in control.
Don't let their manipulations dictate your emotions or your strategy.
Precisely. Another tricky tactic. Deliberate ambiguity. Keeping things vague.
Hoping you'll fill in the blanks.
And those blanks might just work in their favor.
So sneaky.
It is. But Getting to Yes suggests a simple solution.
Which is,
Pin them down. Ask clarifying questions. Get specific about what they mean.
document those agreements in writing.
To avoid those future misunderstandings.
Protect yourself. Make sure everyone's on the same page.
No room for misinterpretation later on.
This isn't about becoming a master manipulator yourself, right?
Absolutely not.
It's not about sinking to their level.
It's about rising above it.
Being aware of those tactics so you're not caught off guard.
And having a strategy to deflect them.
Without sacrificing your principles.
Or jeopardizing the negotiating.
Yes, it really equips you with the tools.
To negotiate effectively and ethically.
Even in those tough situations.
That's the beauty of it. It gives you hope.
Hope that even when people play dirty,
You can still reach fair and sustainable agreements.
It's like a map and compass,
guiding you through the wilderness of tricky negotiations.
and emerging on the other side with your integrity intact.
And with a deal that truly benefits everyone.
Remember that whole BATNA thing we talked about? Your best alternative to a negotiated agreement?
Oh, yeah. Can't forget that.
That's like that safety net.
Knowing you have options if the negotiation fails.
And getting to yes emphasizes that your BATNA isn't static.
It's something you can actively improve.
So be proactive, explore those alternatives, build relationships, gather information,
Create that plan B.
strengthen your position.
It's like investing in your negotiating power.
The more attractive your BATNA,
The more confident you'll feel.
and the less likely you are to settle for a bad deal.
It's like having a strong hand in poker.
You don't have to show your cards.
But knowing you have them gives you that confidence.
But it's not just about our own BTNA, right?
There's the other side's BATNA too.
Right. Understanding their alternatives.
It helps you set realistic expectations.
Tailor your strategy.
If they have a strong BTNA,
You might need to be more flexible, more creative.
finding that solution that works for both of you.
It's not about trying to weaken their position,
It's about understanding their constraints, their motivations.
recognizing that their needs and priorities are just as valid.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another fascinating concept from getting to yes.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Negotiation power can also come from making carefully crafted commitments.
Now that sounds counterintuitive.
I know, right?
We usually think of power as flexibility,
The ability to change our minds.
adjust our demands.
But getting to yes argues that strategic commitments used at the right time can actually give you an edge.
Explain that one to me.
Think about it. By committing to a specific course of action, you signal your seriousness, your clarity of purpose.
So instead of saying, I might be interested in buying your car for around $5,000,
You say, I'm offering you $5,000 for your car. Take it or leave it.
whoa, that's bold.
It can be, but it can also be very effective.
But only if you've done your homework, right?
Exactly. Considered your interests, options, and criteria.
Making that firm offer demonstrates your commitment.
And it can really push the negotiation forward.
It's like saying, I'm ready to make a deal.
Precise.
What about those other types of commitments Getting to Yes talks about?
Well, there's also the power of committing to what you will not do,
Okay, I see where this is going.
setting those boundaries, letting the other side know what's non-negotiable.
Drawing that line in the sand.
This is my limit.
It's about knowing your limits, being willing to walk away.
Absolutely. And the key here is credibility.
Right, it has to be based on principle, not stubbornness.
And you have to be willing to follow through.
So it's not about being inflexible,
It's about being strategic
knowing what's truly important to you,
and being willing to stand your ground.
even if it means walking away.
Exactly. And finally, there's the power of clarifying the commitments you'd like the other side to make,
Being upfront about your expectations.
making sure they understand what you need from the agreement.
So no more hoping they'll just figure it out.
You explicitly state the actions you want them to take,
Removing that ambiguity.
setting clear expectations from the very beginning.
It's like giving them a roadmap to a successful negotiation.
Exactly.
You know, what strikes me about Getting to Yes is this whole mindset shift.
It's not just about tactics.
It's about moving away from that win-lose mentality.
Embracing a more collaborative approach.
Seeing negotiation as an opportunity to build relationships.
Create value. Find solutions that benefit everyone.
And that's a powerful message.
One that goes beyond the negotiating table.
It can apply to our personal lives, our work, our communities.
By embracing those principles
We can transform how we communicate, collaborate, and solve problems.
in every aspect of our lives.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
There's more.
oh, there's so much more to uncover.
Can't wait.
We need to talk about what happens when those best efforts at principled negotiation, they hit a wall.
Oh, you mean when we reach that dreaded impasse?
Exactly. That's where Getting to Yes introduces a truly innovative alternative.
I'm all ears.
They call it the one-text procedure.
The one-text procedure.
Intriguing.
We'll dive into that and much more in the next part of our deep dive into Getting to Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back. All right, so we're back and ready to keep exploring this fascinating world of negotiation.
Picking up right where we left off with Getting to Yes and how to handle those, well, let's call them challenging negotiators.
Those folks who don't exactly play by the rules, right?
Exactly. And, you know, I think this part of the book is especially relevant for our listeners.
Oh, absolutely. They're smart, they're savvy, They've probably encountered their fair share of these tricky characters.
So let's equip them with the tools to handle these situations like pros.
You got it. Remember that principle we talked about? Don't react, deflect. It's like having that mental shield.
Protecting you from those psychological jabs.
Exactly, because let's face it, those sneaky tactics, they're designed to throw you off balance.
Get you emotional, make you concede things you wouldn't normally concede.
And getting to, yes, it gives you this framework for staying grounded.
Keeping your eye on the prize, which is, of course,
Reaching a wise agreement that benefits everyone.
not just the person who's trying to manipulate the situation.
No, I gotta admit, sometimes it's easier said than done, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially when you're in the heat of the moment, those adrenaline's pumping, you feel that pressure,
But that's where practice comes in.
and having a strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting to, yes, it breaks it down into manageable steps, offering practical techniques that anyone can use.
Like what?
Well, remember how we talked about naming the tactic? Just calling it out,
Right, like shining a spotlight on it.
making it harder for them to keep using it.
So if someone throws out this ridiculous demand, instead of getting flustered, I might say something like,
Whoa, that seems like a pretty steep starting point.
what's the rationale behind that number?
Exactly. You're not accusing them, you're just expressing an observation,
Inviting them to explain their thinking.
which often forces them to either back down or come up with a more legitimate justification.
It's like saying, okay, I see what you're doing here, but let's be reasonable.
Exactly. And, one of the classic examples the book gives is that good guy, bad guy routine.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Where one negotiator comes in, all tough and demanding.
Then the other one swoops in, all smiles and charm, offering this supposed compromise.
That's still totally tilted in their favor.
He's like a bad cop movie.
Except the stakes are your business deal or your sanity.
So how do we handle that?
Well, yes, it offers this brilliant countermove.
Okay, I'm listening.
Don't fall for the good guy trap. Treat them the same way you treated the bad guy.
Oh, I like that. So if the good guy says, look, I'm trying to be reasonable here, how about we just split the difference?
You say, I appreciate that, but I'm still not clear why that would be the fairest solution. Can you help me understand your thinking?
You're holding them to those same standards of fairness and objectivity.
Exactly. You're not letting them off the hook just because they've changed their tone.
Stay in control. Don't let their manipulations dictate your emotions.
Or your strategy.
It's about staying focused on the principles.
And the goal of reaching a mutually beneficial agreement.
Another tricky tactic they talk about is deliberate ambiguity,
Oh, that's a good one.
keeping things vague, hoping you'll fill in the blanks with your own assumptions.
Which, of course, might just work to their advantage.
Sneaky. So what's the solution?
Getting to yes is all about clarity. So pin them down. Don't be afraid to ask those clarifying questions.
Get specific about what they mean, and maybe even document those agreements in writing.
To prevent any future misunderstandings.
It's like that old saying, get it in writing.
Exactly. Protect yourself. Make sure everyone's on the same page. No room for misinterpretation later on.
It's all about managing those risks.
And remember, this isn't about becoming some master manipulator yourself.
No, we're not trying to outsmart them or play their game.
It's about rising above those tactics, not stooping to their level.
It's about knowing what to look out for and having a strategy for handling those situations.
Without sacrificing your own integrity.
Or the integrity of the negotiation.
Exactly. Getting to yes gives you the tools to negotiate effectively and ethically, even when you're dealing with those difficult personalities.
And I think that's one of the most valuable things about this book.
It gives you that sense of hope.
That even in a world where people sometimes resort to those underhanded tactics,
You can still achieve those fair and sustainable agreements.
it's like they're handing you a map and a compass for navigating those tricky negotiations.
And emerging on the other side, not only with a deal that works,
But with your principles intact.
and that's something worth striving for.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about that concept of BTNA again. Remember, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Oh yeah, the safety net.
Knowing you have options if the deal falls through.
And getting to yes really emphasizes that your BTNA isn't just some static thing.
It's something you could actively work on.
Improve, strengthen.
So it's not just about accepting your current situation. It's about being proactive, exploring those alternatives,
Building relationships, gathering information.
creating that plan B that gives you more leverage.
Think of it like investing in your negotiating power.
The more attractive your BTNA, the more confident you'll feel going into a negotiation.
And the less likely you are to settle for something that doesn't really meet your needs.
It's like having that strong hand in poker, you know? You don't necessarily have to show your cards.
But knowing you have them gives you that sense of calm and confidence.
And it's not just about our own BTNA, right? There's the other side's BTNA to consider as well.
Absolutely. Understanding their alternatives, it's crucial.
It helps you set realistic expectations, tailor your strategy.
If they have a strong BTNA, you might need to be more flexible, more creative in your approach.
It's not about trying to weaken their position. It's about understanding their constraints, their motivations.
Finding solutions that work for both of you, recognizing that their needs are just as valid as yours.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really intriguing concept from getting to yes.
Okay, hit me with it.
The idea that negotiation power can actually come from making carefully crafted commitments.
Now that sounds a bit counterintuitive, right?
It does. We often think of power as flexibility, the ability to change our minds, adjust our demands.
But getting to yes argues that strategic commitments used at the right time can actually give you an advantage.
Okay, I'm listening. Explain that one to me.
Well, think about it. By committing to a specific course of action, you signal your seriousness, your clarity of purpose.
So instead of saying, I might be interested in buying your car for around $5,000.
You say, I'm offering you $5,000 for your car. Take it or leave it.
Whoa, that's bold.
It can be, but it can also be very effective.
If you've done your homework, of course.
Exactly. You've considered your interests, your options, you've weighed the criteria.
Making that firm offer, it shows you're ready to make a deal.
Precisely.
Now, what about those other types of commitments that Getting to Yes talks about?
Well, there's also the power of committing to what you will not do.
Setting those boundaries.
Letting the other side know what's non-negotiable, what's off the table.
Drawing that line in the sand.
This is my limit.
It's about knowing your limits, being willing to walk away if they're not respected.
Absolutely. And the key here is credibility. It has to be based on principle, not just stubbornness.
And you have to be willing to follow through.
If they try to push you beyond that boundary.
So it's not about being inflexible.
It's about being strategic, principled in your approach.
It's about knowing what's truly important to you and being willing to stand your ground.
Even if it means walking away from the deal.
Okay, I'm getting that. And what about that third type of commitment?
The third type is about clarifying the commitments you'd like the other side to make.
Okay, so being upfront about your expectations.
Exactly. Making sure they understand what you need from the agreement, what a successful outcome looks like for you.
So no more hoping they'll magically read your mind.
Be explicit. State the actions you want them to take.
Removing that ambiguity, setting those clear expectations from the outset.
It's like providing them with a roadmap to a successful negotiation.
I love that analogy.
Minimizing misunderstandings, increasing the likelihood of reaching an agreement that truly satisfies both parties.
So to sum it up, Getting to Yes is about so much more than just tactics and techniques.
It's about a fundamental shift in mindset.
Moving away from that win-lose mentality.
Embracing a more collaborative, problem-solving approach.
It's about seeing negotiation as an opportunity to build relationships, create value, and find solutions that benefit everyone involved.
And that's a powerful message that I think resonates far beyond the negotiating table.
It does. These principles can be applied to our personal lives, our professional relationships, even our interactions with our families and communities.
Exactly. By embracing these principles, we can transform how we communicate, how we collaborate, and how we solve problems in every aspect of our lives.
So let's move on and explore some of the really interesting ways Getting to Yes helps us tackle those problems that inevitably arise in any negotiation.
Because at the end of the day, we're not just negotiating contracts or deals, we're negotiating with human beings.
With all their emotions, perceptions, and communication quirks.
And those human elements can either make or break a deal. So let's dive into that next.
Sounds good to me. You know, as we wrap up our deep dive into Getting to Yes, one thing that really sticks with me is this. It's not just about learning some negotiation hacks. It's about a whole new way of thinking, right?
Absolutely. It's a real mindset shift. We're so used to that win-lose mentality.
Yeah, like negotiation is a battle and someone has to come out on top.
But Getting to Yes, it flips that script, encouraging us to embrace a more collaborative approach.
See negotiation as an opportunity to build those relationships, create value.
Find solutions that actually benefit everyone involved.
And I think that's a powerful message that resonates far beyond the boardroom.
Oh, for sure. It applies to our personal lives, our work, our communities.
Everywhere, really.
Yeah. Exactly. By embracing those principles, we can really change how we communicate, how we collaborate, and how we solve those everyday problems.
It's about bringing those getting to yes skills into every aspect of our lives.
I love that. So, to everyone listening, I highly encourage you to pick up a copy of Getting to Yes.
Yes. Read it, explore those ideas, and experiment with those principles in your own life
It's a book that can truly change how you see the world.
and how you interact with everyone around you. And remember, the most important negotiation you'll ever have.
Is the one you have with yourself.
Wow, that's powerful. Negotiating with our own doubts, our fears, those limiting beliefs, that's where the real work begins. Until next time.
Keep negotiating with courage, clarity, and a commitment to finding those wise and mutually beneficial outcomes.
We'll see you then.